Have you ever stopped to consider how often you cross a bridge and you don't really think about it? Like we're out driving around and we're going someplace and we just drive across a bridge, and sometimes we don't know we're driving across a bridge because a lot of bridges just kind of look like the regular roadway. And then sometimes we do know it's a bridge because there'll be the suspension, the all the metal girders and things up overhead. But even then, when we know it's a bridge, most of us just trust that the bridge is going to hold us up and we'll get from the side we're on to the side we're going, and life is good. And I was thinking, like, what would happen if you turned on the news and you heard that a bridge had collapsed? Well, one bridge collapse alone would be newsworthy. But what if all of a sudden bridges just started collapsing everywhere, like routinely? You would turn on the news and you'd be like, another bridge collapsed today, this time taking down 17 cars. There were 2 fatalities and 3 people rushed to the hospital. Like, if that started happening, where the bridges started collapsing and it became a common thing, we would suddenly become so aware of all the bridges and every time we were about to cross one, because we would begin to feel this anxiety. We would begin to feel uneasy. And we would probably take some action to go out and start fixing bridges. And a lot of us might go out of our way to avoid bridges because we can't trust them. So I was thinking about this today because of also an uneasy feeling that I keep carrying, seems more often in my daily interactions with businesses, and sometimes even in my personal life, just in relationship with other people. And that is the word integrity. So when you think of a bridge and you think of integrity, you think of that bridge as being strong and something you can trust. And so it's not compromised. You don't like for integrity to be compromised. You like for integrity to be solid, like a bridge. And when you think about integrity as being synonymous as the word trust, so meaning the same thing as trust, then even the word trust becomes a great analogy for the way we relate with each other as human. So envision the word trust spelled T-R-U-S-T. And the first letter in the word trust is T. And think about that letter T as being 2 cross beams that are bolted, welded, riveted together to hold strong as a support for a bridge. And also think about that letter T in front of the word trust as representing the word truth or true and trustworthy. And so when you're thinking about a bridge, you want those cross beams to be strong and trustworthy. So when you're thinking about human relationship, you want a person's word to be trustworthy. You want a person's commitment. You want a person to have integrity. And that kind of integrity means that if a person says they're going to show up for something, they're going to show up. And if something comes up that prevents them from showing up or doing whatever they said they were going to do, if they have integrity, they're going to take action in a timely way to inform you of whatever's going on. They're going to say, hey, something has come up. It's really important. I know I told you I would do this, or I told you I would be there. But something that just, I really have to give priority to this. I apologize. I feel bad about this. And then, you might make other arrangements. But that's what integrity looks like. Another way that integrity shows up in relationships is when a person claims to have certain values and they say that they care about certain things. Well, if they truly have integrity, then the very things that they say they value or they claim that are important to them, it will show up in their behaviors, because their behaviors will align with their values. And their values will have usually been expressed through their words. So there again, we're talking about the integrity of being able to trust a person. And a lot of times we phrase that as saying you can take them at their word, meaning it's like that bridge that you don't really have to think about. You're in your car, you're on this side, you need to be on that side of the river, and you just go across the bridge. Well, I'm on this side, you're on that side. You told me you would take care of something. It's going to get from here to there done. I can trust you. You told me you're going to show up. I can trust you to show up. That's that bridge. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to be nervous. I don't have to be anxious. I don't have to be frustrated. I don't have to be avoidant, because I know that I can trust what you say. Well, what seems to be happening is that it's becoming more often that bridges are collapsing when we're talking about the human to human, bridges of our words, bridges of our claims, especially in business. But it seems all too easy anymore to talk quickly and not follow up with our behaviors. And one of the places where this shows up, and I think it's probably where it starts, and I'm dealing with some of this myself right now. I think we all deal with it, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what's going on in our lives, but with ourselves. So being able to trust ourselves when we give our word to ourselves and we say we're going to start making a certain change, or we're going to do something differently. And then we don't honor that word to ourselves. And then we get into a situation where we begin to break down our own trust and our own integrity. So it kind of starts with ourselves. But even every time we give our word to another person and don't honor it, we're actually dishonoring ourselves first. And then we're also dishonoring this other person. And so there is this cosmic spiritual essence to the importance of meaning what we say and creating the reality that aligns with our words and our intentions. And when we don't, when we don't, what happens is those cross beams, that T in front of the word trust, begins to erode and break away. And when you lose that T, that truth, that support, you're left with the word rust, R-U-S-T. So if you began to notice that your bridges are becoming compromised, it's too easy to just cancel something. It's too easy to keep changing your mind. It's too easy to not follow through. It's too easy to procrastinate or to make an excuse, whether it's with yourself and your promise to yourself, or your commitment to other people, whether it's in business or whether it's in your personal life. Doesn't matter. If you're beginning to notice that, or maybe you've not noticed it and listening to this vehicle has now got you thinking, or even if other people seem to be doing it with you and you want to address that in some way that's beneficial, what you want to consider is it's maybe time to examine your bridges. In order to examine your bridges, whether it's in the literal sense of going out and doing an inspection on a literal bridge, or it's the metaphorical bridge of the way you build your words and are they going to hold, you have to have a few things working together. Number one, you have to take the time to do it. That means you have to have time designated where you clear out other commitments and other distractions, and you really inspect. You go inside, or you look at your life and you look at recent history and you say, have I become somebody who too easily doesn't do what I say I'm going to do? I just kind of give lip service to stuff. That's rusty bridges. So you have to have time. You also have to have visual access. You have to have eyes on. You have to access underneath, in other words. So if you think about a literal bridge, from the top of the bridge, it may look fine, but you got to get down, you got to look underneath, and you're probably going to need a flashlight. You might even, if you're like me, you might need to put on some lenses to help you really get in there and inspect where those rivets and those bolts and those beams come together. So you inspect your intentions. You inspect your life. You look around and say, well, maybe I've got too many commitments and it's causing me to compromise, you know, things that are important to me. And maybe I need to scale back a little bit. So you got to look deep, or you got to look underneath, and you got to shine that light. And the light that you've got to shine is that light of integrity, that light of deeper awareness, truth, the light of spiritual consciousness is what I like to think of it as being, that light, that divine light that will get in there and shine on the truth. So you have to have time, make time. You have to have good visuals to really look in there. And then if you discover that you've got rust, you've got to decide what you're going to do about that rust. And that means you've got to perform some maintenance. You got to make some repairs. If it's minor, maybe you just have to get in there with a sandblaster or a wire brush and get the rust off, and then maybe put a undercoat and some Rust-Oleum on there, right? So metaphorically, that would be maybe there's some apologies you need to make, or maybe you just need to say, oh, I need to keep better records, or I need to keep a better calendar so that moving forward, I don't lose track of things and have to cancel. Heavier maintenance might be that you have to replace some bolts. You have to, do some, stop traffic for a little bit and really make some repairs. And only you can decide what that needs to be for you. And when it's yourself, start there. Start with the commitments to yourself, because everything will radiate out from there. That's the first bridge. That's the most important bridge. And that's the internal bridge between you and what you say you value. So if you take an inventory, do an inspection, and ask yourself, what do I really value? Do I really value family? Do I really value my friendships? Do I really value my church? Do I really value my work? Do I really value my neighbors? Those relationships, do I really value those? And if the answer is yes, I do, then what does that look like? That's the next question. What does that look like? Can people trust me? Do I show up? Or am I always blowing people off? Or am I always giving lip service to things? Or more often than not, probably not always. And yourself. Because if you say you're going to eat better, if you say you're going to get more sleep, if you say you're going to watch less television, and you're not honoring those things, that's where you're already beginning to break down the first bridge, and then it goes over from there. So if you don't want to have rusty bridges and you want to help improve the conditions of the world we're living in, because this is kind of a contagious thing, is when everybody starts seeing everybody else have rusty bridges, and everybody just kind of says, well, people just don't really mean what they say, or yeah, everybody else blows me off, so I don't really have to keep my word with other people. That's putting us in dangerous territory, and that means we can't really count on each other, and we're breaking down the literal human fabric that kind of holds us together as communities and families and friends and businesses and all that stuff that's important and that really matters. So go out or go in and examine your bridges, and have a great day.